If you have an essay test coming up, the good news is you can do a great job in any topic or subject just by getting a little strategic with how you write your response. That's what we're going to go over in today's video. I'm Erin Labax. This is High Value Writing. Thanks for being here, where we look at ways to get strategic with our language to meet the goals that we want, which in this case is a great grade on an essay test question. We are going to look at 4 areas of writing it, but we're also going to consider strategically what is being wanted, what is being looked for as I write this, and let me make sure I align what I provide with what is expected and wanted. But especially in these 4 areas where I'll share a tip on how to do all of these. First one, how to make your point. In what way do you do it? Where do you do it? How do you know when you've made your point? Clearly enough, right? There's an easy way to do this in an essay test. What order should you put things in? Maybe you want to say 4 things. Are you going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 3, 4, 2? What would be the most logical? We'll discuss it in a moment. What kind of evidence will work best for this particular essay question? And lastly, what are you going to do about a little tiny introduction and conclusion? Because even though an essay test response might be as brief as a big paragraph or as long as a few pages, you still want to be working with your reader by introducing and concluding. Okay, so speaking of that reader, a tip that pertains to all of these. One of the best ways to get a great grade on your essays or essay tests is just to kind of think, all right, what do they want? What am I doing? Let's make a match. So what is being looked for either by your assignment sheet, your rubric, or by your teacher? What is important to them, right? When we write in business and the workplace, we're always thinking, ooh, I'm writing to a human being. If I make my message work well for them, they'll probably be happier and do what I want. It's just logical human nature. We can think about that with school too, because guess what? Your teacher is also a human being, right? And your teacher also has things that they have prioritized over the semester or the quarter, and they would probably be pretty happy to see you bringing out that kind of information or skill that they've been focusing on. So we're going to keep that in mind as we go through these 4 areas. In the end, I'll have a story of when I tried to provide what was looking for and how that worked out for me. Okay, so first thing, always making a point. And in an essay test, your answer might be little, it might be big, doesn't matter. You have to make a clear point. I would suggest you write a sentence where you can literally highlight it. You can say, my point is right here. I can point at it. Your teacher can point at it, right? No disputing whether there's a main point. 1 literal sentence, maybe 2, that says your point. How do you do it? I would just consider using the 5 W's in a sentence, right? So we say who did something, what they did, when, where, and why. This can work really well in all subjects, right? We might have a history class and we might say, this law caused these things to happen, and talk about when and where and what was the outcome, right? So you can fit all 5 of those into one sentence, and that could be your main point. Just one more thing to consider. Check, does your instructor want this essay test answer to be informative or persuasive? Are you trying to prove that you know things that you were, supposed to learn? Or are you trying to make a point and argue it? They're both good, but those are often different essay tests. So check the question. And if they wanted you to show, tell me everything about this war or this law or this economic policy, probably your thesis, your main point will just say the information. But you might be trying to be persuasive, right? It might be write a persuasive piece on what you think about this new economic regulation. Well, if that's the case, your main point must be debatable. It must be a sentence that other people could argue with or disagree, right? So probably everyone wants their 5 W's in one sentence and say, look, my main point is right here, but check whether you need to be straightforward and informative or persuasive and convincing and debatable. Okay, how to order your ideas. When I come to an essay test, especially a timed one, I'm kind of like, oh my gosh, right? Or just writing. And I probably want to say maybe 3 or 4 things, but how am I going to get them in an order that works for the reader? Okay, this is where it's really important to think about that strategy. The better time, let's just be honest here, the better time your instructor has reading your paper, the better chance you're going to get a high score, right? Because if they have a good time reading it, that means it was logical, organized, and clear. Easy to read, easy to use, easy to learn from. So first thing to help with that is pick a system for how you're going to order your ideas. I like to call this a skeleton. What is underneath the essay? Ordering everything. Your reader, your teacher might not even notice that structure or skeleton, but they also won't get confused, right? And a non-confused reader is one who's thinking, oh, this paper is going quite well. Probably need to give this area a good score. Some of the most common systems are doing your paragraphs in terms of chronology, what happened first, second, third, or a couple paragraphs on cause, a couple paragraphs on effect, couple paragraphs on problem, couple paragraphs on solution. Those are three popular, easy ways to order your paper. And if you want some other examples, this video on writing essays also includes some organizational charts that you could use to make outlines. Okay, next, we're gonna jot down, we've already thought, okay, I'm gonna be chronological or whatever it is. Now I'm gonna jot down 3 or 4 things I wanna talk about and think about what they would be like in different orders. Would A, B, C be the most logical, or would A, C, B feel the most logical for the reader? I literally have had people cut out different points they've made, move them around like a puzzle, and you'll see, oh, I was going to do A, B, C. Way more logical to do B, A, C. Your goal is for the reader's brain to have the easiest time possible getting through this answer, where everything feels like the logical step that comes after the previous step. And then lastly, on that strategic note, think for a moment, who's reading this? What matters most to them? Are they really a fan of a particular artistic movement that you're going to discuss? Maybe you want to start with that movement then, with that kind of art before you get to others, right? So sometimes you'll think, I'm going to put it in an order that's most exciting for my reader. Quick example, if you're writing a report on extreme weather and you want to cover hurricanes, floods, wildfires, that might work great for readers in Florida. But if you send that report to readers in California, I don't think it's going to be the best order anymore. Floods, hurricanes, wildfires. I would now switch and start with the wildfires. So think about that in terms of your teacher, your class topic, what has been most important, because this is us being strategic with what our readers want. When we give them what they want, they're usually pretty happy, and that works well for us too. Okay, 2 more areas. What kind of evidence should you use? Well, that's going to have to do a lot with your rubric or your assignment sheet, but one of the main questions to consider is what will be most convincing to this reader or to this topic, about this topic, facts or stories? Are you going to do data or anecdotes? Often a mix of both is the best approach, but I would always suggest think about your teacher, look at your assignment sheet, and think what kind of evidence is considered the best kind of evidence here, and try to use that the most. For example, do you need to use certain kinds of sources? Do they need to be books, websites, poems, songs, right? What kind of evidence? And then are you going to be pulling data and percentages or sharing examples and stories? Usually, most readers respond to a combination of both. Many people get really convinced by a lot of facts. Many people get convinced by a human story. The most people get convinced when both are there and align. Reminder though, whatever kind of evidence you use, and I say this because as a teacher, I've noticed this is, I think, the most commonly forgotten part of the essay test and the evidence. Explain how every piece of evidence you use supports your main point. We don't want to just say, here's some evidence and assume the reader can figure out how it supports your point, right? You want to say, based on this evidence, we can see X, Y, Z. Back to your point, right? By the way, as you're working on making that point, here is another video resource on writing a thesis statement, which is really similar, the same in many cases, to a main point statement. All right, one more area, which is how to do your intro and conclusion. Sometimes these are going to be tiny. Maybe your whole entire answer is one paragraph. I would still suggest at least one sentence at the top and bottom. This is all to help your reader make sense of what you're saying and know that you gave a good argument. If you have a longer paper, a longer response, you might be able to do a few sentences. So here's what I would prioritize in that small amount of space. In your intro, make sure to reiterate briefly your point or argument, but also why should they care and what are the impacts? Where is this all going, right? Why does this matter going down the line? In your introduction, purpose. We care about these possible impacts, so let's look at this analysis that I'm going to do in my answer. Conclusion, what mattered about what I just told you, right? Why was that all important? Did it just go back to answer the question, or am I also going to talk about maybe next steps, other implications this might have in the world? That's what people like to see, that you're able to apply the topic forward onto other kinds of topics in life. All right, so last thing I want to share, my story with a final tip. Again, these readers are humans. They have so much to read. Look at her. It's heavy. There's a lot to read. So when I took the GRE test, I did my best score in the writing area out of the 3 areas. Why? I'm pretty sure it was either because I did badly in the others. No, just kidding. I think it was because I thought to myself, I thought about that grader. I thought, they're probably going to read a few thousand of these. What if mine was just so easy to get through? No stress at all. Oh, here's her point. Oh, A, B, C. Oh, she's told me why it matters. Oh, just the evidence I wanted. Knowing in my head that if they were happy and had an easy time reading it, that translates to, I must have made a clear argument, right? So that's where you really want to focus on that human interaction. Think about what your instructor is looking for, give them that, and give them the ease of easy reading, clear main point, topic sentences, sentences that review why your evidence supported your point. And all of this is to show your grader that you know what you're talking about. All right, so thank you for listening. Let me know what your questions are. I'd love to help you out if you have other questions going into your essay tests. So thanks for watching. I'm Erin, and I'll see you soon.